What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be my second episode of Road to Endgame, where I am reviewing every single Marvel Cinematic Universe movie leading up to Avengers Endgame. And today we are talking about one of the most underrated MCU films, in my opinion, and that would be The Incredible Hulk. So The Incredible Hulk is kind of a weird movie. It just doesn't really fit in with all of the other MCU films, mainly because it stars Edward Norton as the Incredible Hulk. And as everybody knows, Mark Ruffalo plays the Hulk in the MCU. Now, no one really knows what happened between Edward Norton and Marvel. All we know is Edward Norton doesn't play the Hulk anymore, and it kind of disconnects this movie from the rest of the MCU. I do remember Marvel putting out a statement just saying that they were going in a different direction with the Hulk, which I guess does make sense because they definitely did go a different direction with the Hulk. And I do love Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk. Don't get me wrong. Mark Ruffalo is my Hulk, and I'm happy he plays him in the MCU. But I'm just kind of curious to see how the Hulk would have turned out if Edward Norton did still play the Hulk. I thought he was a great casting. And kind of like I said earlier, I do think this movie is a bit underrated, and I do enjoy his performance a lot. But because of all of the confusion with Edward Norton playing the Hulk in this movie, and just the change of tone in this movie, it's definitely not like the other MCU films. And I know some people don't even know that this movie takes place in the MCU, because really the only thing that connects this movie to the MCU is Thunderbolt Ross, and then at the end, Tony Stark shows up. So that's really the only thing that connects this movie to the MCU now. The best decision made in this movie was showing the origin story of the Hulk in the opening credits. That idea was just a fantastic idea. Just get the origin story out of the way so people who don't know the Hulk can easily get his origin story just right off the bat, and leave the movie open for a better story for the Incredible Hulk. So after the origin story quickly being showed off in the opening credits, the story is actually pretty simple. Pretty much Bruce Banner is on the run. He just tried to find a cure from the Hulk because he definitely just doesn't want to be the Hulk anymore. Now, critically, this is the second worst MCU film, just beating Thor: The Dark World by 1% on Rotten Tomatoes. But now let's talk about the good and then the bad. First, let's start off with Edward Norton's performance as Bruce Banner / the Hulk. Kind of like I said earlier, I do really enjoy Edward Norton as Bruce Banner. His performance in this movie is pretty solid. It's not great, it's nothing standout. It's definitely not like Robert Downey Jr. in the first Iron Man, but it's definitely a solid performance, and I would have definitely loved to see where he could have taken Bruce Banner in future movies. Something else that this movie does right are the villains of the movie, which is honestly kind of surprising because a lot of these earlier MCU films, the main problem I have with them are the villains. But this movie definitely gets its villains right. And the villains in this movie are Thunderbolt Ross and Abomination. And it really sets up Thunderbolt Ross's character very good. And it leads to a emotional payoff in the end. And I really like his character in this entire movie. And then there's Abomination in this movie, played by Tim Roth, who definitely isn't the stronger villain in the movie, but he's still a pretty solid villain with an amazing third act fight with the Hulk. And that whole fight scene is definitely probably my favorite scene in the entire movie. It is set up pretty well, and the action is really fun to watch, and it's just a great ending battle altogether. But now let's talk about what this movie does bad. And to be honest, this movie doesn't really do too much bad. It's just it doesn't do too much great either. This movie is just good. Like, it's just an okay film. It doesn't do anything great. There's no like standout scene or performance in the movie that really pushed it over the edge. It's just an okay movie. There's nothing really bad in the movie. It's just there's nothing really great either, and that's pretty much the only thing I have wrong with this movie is that like I just wish it had that one scene that really pushed it to that next mark in the movie, and it could have been something great. But now let's talk about the end credit scene. I'm pretty sure there are 2 end credit scenes, but let's talk about the more important one anyway. And that is when Tony Stark comes out and talks to Thunderbolt Ross and says, "We are putting together a team."
If I told you we were putting a team together, who's we?
It is a great end credit scene. It is probably still one of the best today. It's not like the first Iron Man that like, oh my goodness, mind blown, because it is the first of its kind, but it is definitely up there just because it was like the first ever like crossover in the MCU that Tony Stark was in another movie. And yeah, those are just my quick thoughts on the ending credit scene to this movie. But at the end of the day, The Incredible Hulk is a underrated film in the MCU in my opinion. It's definitely not a great movie. It is definitely one of the weaker MCU films, but I do think it deserves more love than it gets. It's a good movie at the end of the day. I enjoy it. It's a fun watch. And I'm gonna give The Incredible Hulk a C+. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm enjoying this series. This is just my second episode. I got many more to go, so definitely hit that subscribe button if you're new here. It means the world to me. But thank you so much for watching and have a good one.